Hello, dear America. I live in Weathersfield, Connecticut. In the middle of coronavirus, especially, there's no social places to meet people and things like that. And it's being and having been exploited where they have identity thefts and frauds and sequence shifts. We're hundreds of nations at once. There are only three branches of government. Everything, all database relationships. Further, that this is since before our founding parents were born. It was a method entrenched here, a method /S. So since before the World Trade Center attack, there were courts and judges and prosecutors. I didn't know enough names then to be able to make a police report. Also, because of their involvements already, I knew it was recorded. I didn't know the extent of it. And their uses of depositions in cases that have nothing to do with each other. And the ones that are immediately relevant, because these are people involved on and off the World Trade Center attack rolls with predicate acts, which I'm not a lawyer. These are illusions, with relevant illusions, and falsified police report rolls. In identity ground locations racketeering rolls, worse than war crimes, including within as the campuses. I mean, in the branches of government, only three, and foreign police here too, hundreds of countries here and there shared policing, disputes resolutions that are peaceful, syntax racketeering only tied in relationship to that which is unfathomably unacceptable, only just knave quality or fact cheaping nature behind it. That which is entrenched, being and having been the forced, self-valued propagate, self-cultivated, propagated of breaching methods, propagated fact cheaping nature infrastructure before modern nations were conceived. As sophistications, as victims, reliant upon, more and more reliant upon how nations were this way conceived, tactically ulterior, its way, its method /S, conceived tactical ulterior from and as sciences, grounds, locations, as our identity of volume, humanity, as value, where nature is value as nature /nature as value, in those 1/3. Identities of value as volume as value, as nature, and again as nature as value in two different distinct. This is how it is discernible through science. Now people wanted to debate such and need to debate such by having a nature that makes allegations against people. Or like Mr. Biden. A victim reaction where both Mr. Biden and President /Chief Trump are victims of what all the presidents all leaders of every modern country. And where that is not true, everyone's forcing each other to entertain criminal insidious natures of positive with logic. In other words, it's premises treatments, convictions and opinions behind uses of such, in collusion with insidious /overt natures of negative, value nature progressions, acts and natures like predicate acts, wrongdoers, wrongdoing, criminal insidious natures like that, of acts and things, people, progressions. We're in an identity of negative value nature progression. So this design laws against every location, area, and state, against every individual of it. That knowing that once that is entertained, no matter what, it wasn't anyone's cause, so they would blame on other things other than themselves and then defend that. And then that would be easily exploited right back to all the identity of the ground locations. where a breaching method was the cause for negative value nature progressions, action natures, and consciously propagating people to defenses of fact treatment nature responses that are dishonest. Some of this is because we have to counter people with locations, areas, states, on-off campus, on-off database relationships. But we have to counter the interbranch involved with them, and with foreign simultaneously, and with overt criminal enterprises simultaneously, and with private ones originally and still for self-valued simultaneously, where they separate subjects too, no, where the simultaneous doesn't. In other words, all exceptions and exception nature are in demonstration of the same thing. Boxing. Science share an identity in the boxing, the martial arts were revealed because of a quality of fact treatment nature that ancients had that was lost in some ancient times, because they stopped going by the perfect value/value progression, which per science is existing. English was revealed to teach this. This is ground science. This is evolution science. This is the engineering of the human fact treatment nature. This is the engineering of positive, of truth, bound by identity. This is about the order/S of and as that value, manifest as physics, metaphysics, and as identity simultaneously. So it is a misnomer to say that an algorithm is not identity science itself, which English is about. Because it's the identity that is distinctly, non-distinctly, and simultaneously the value of all the notes, the value of how and why, the letters are individually grouped and together bound, all gather round. And as that, by what? It's not just those 3 volumes. While being just those 3 volumes, it is from 2 positions, identities of sequence nature. One already formed, so this is where we are value as nature/nature as value, is where and how we are making more of an invisible but still discernible extent/S of forever nature. And the ancients knew how to cause positive value nature progressions, action natures. There are proofs that the ancients would say criminal insidiousness is what is not positive onto those 5 identities of sequence/simultaneous nature, distinctly, non-distinctly, and simultaneously, consciously. Prayer is a scientific value. Not for so the messengers of modern religions knew that they would have to preserve means to counter already complete possession of all locations, areas, states, education, therefore fact treatment nature. Therefore elements of they had complete possession of the value/value progression where everyone was going to go. What they were going to say, how they were going to counter negative value nature progressions, action natures. With the breaching method, knowing that they would blame each other for other things, even when correctly. They would more and more be self-valuing premises with their convictions and opinions in response to things even correctly when they had to respond. More and more incapable of defending that to themselves and of countering that which was already entrenched. Archetypal criminal enterprise. So, how I know this, and they pretend people make conspiracies with people, foreign and domestic, that are involved with investigators, in the investigations of that, and identities of the law themselves, their identity ground locations. Forgiveness is not to give up, but to show how they're preventing free speech with locations with the other nations, and with the overt criminal enterprises, and with the private ones, and with much worse, keeping everyone needing to hide the same sequence shifts. Finite illusions, as illusions. Used for breaching screen tool, weapon, worse than just murder, which war is murder. Where and how? Is way better than just avoidable. Since before cars, we have the people that are for with passions and emotions offensively, glorifying, technology, things like that. But look, we're in the same traps since before cars. The same pathology of suburban homes, and across the globe of nations. Russia and America have homes that look almost exactly the same. They have nuclear weapons and stuff like that, but we have a contract. But we're still value systems the complete possession. All exceptions in exception nature are a demonstration of the same thing. When they bring up things like wealth, they leave out, even wealth is the complete possession. Our founding parents didn't have free speech, so one must teach. So one must be able to portray, in other words, with the science, as science. I'm not a doctor. They're also recorded how they have types of law, types of things. That you have to pick a type, or you're not in the industry, including when it's more than an industry. Real healthcare is very, we know that's valuable. And so, but they said then when they come to arguing about what's real and what's real healthcare? See, they leave out how they have a whole bunch of natures of exploited anomaly because of natures of predicate acts, organized crime, worse than war crimes, identity ground locations, shared roles, uses of other people's named roles. So we have to be allowed to discern that. We open, like, for example, how they would prevent mandated law if anyone tried to use the finite and sequence true. Police forums will go, just have the courts decide. So then people are going to make an argument leaving out the court's roles, using and having used all locations, people's names, and with physical delusions, while they were rules crimes predators. Otherwise, the people they locked up, for example, would have demonstrated what they did, faking passions and emotions. Uses of criminal and ceaseless natures of positive and of negative with their premises treatments, tactically, criminally, foreign influence. The more we look at the negative, the more you can find that nature of positive that leads the ancient gaming system. It only feels that leads evolution science. Still, it only feels like game /S. I took best vaccines. We have to follow mandated law outside of courts because they've been forging names, switching names, denying people from demonstrating their clear roles with connections between campuses that they don't understand, but their roles being and having been used as styles. Self-valuing needs to hide lie progressions individually grouped and together, everyone next to them, because of all that tied to everyone speaking through others, and per the methods that are simultaneous. Lay on campuses, database relationships, identity ground locations. People needing to put the same elements. So people that are using time always too fast, too slow, to get over on forever nature, what is true always, still its identity of truth, as exceptions. That is an idea. We have truths used for lies and time treatments. So more and more, where and how the republic has value as nature / nature has value, where nothing can be anything. Nothing has value as nature has value / nature has value. Can be anything other than an increasing identity of volume. So it's part of why and how we can't help but be temporary positive. Heaven and hell were per science, using correlation alone, per the science of correlation alone, were revealed by the ancients to teach about this. The one identity of value / value progression that is generating more and more forever nature, only the extent of it is debatable. And those who debate it have to rely upon tactically, criminally, foreign influence, premises treatment, sequence treatments, finite, active, progressive treatment. They have to get away, in other words. It is a big mistake to pretend that voting means something it doesn't, while offensively mandated law is prevented to all locations. And this is not debatable. If people who are denying it, all exceptions accepted in demonstration, the same thing. Because that shows them with methods and backgrounds, forging names, switching names. Not really denying like what they speak in the backgrounds when I say this. So get on to paper. Because they also fall out of sequence. And so, no, in other words, there's a Leahy family that has been involved with kids, and since they're adults, involved with crimes which kill kids, worse than just child abuses against their family. Everyone's extended family. They have their extended family members. A house of G involved with them with predicate acts. Recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed too by them through time. Everyone speaking through other. Weatherfield Police recorded over the last few months. They sought me out through the Weatherfield town offices too now, which has ties to their roles with other countries, with military families, involved with, in the past, with the judges, prosecutors, criminally involved with military families and foreign families, and people that pretended things near the edge of park, for example, where they have fake sides of correlation nature because of the rules because of the methods, the method /S roles, the methods though of the branches individually grouped together, used remotely and having been used remotely in relationship, for example, again to those identity ground location uses like the infrastructure and means to it that were applied by that which had slavery with color as a conscious, sickly, distinctly human fact treatment nature slavery of our founding parents too. They have their identity thefts and frauds self-valued by our experts, clear as day, using that to get over on correlation nature, using that to get over on life. We're supposed to write over the first part of the Old Testament. We're supposed to begin by using correlation nature simultaneously, inherent, active, and progressive means to discern a scientific value of an identity of value / value progression that is most practically what developed before matter was generated by and as the result of its identity of volume, its identity of volume's identity of relationship to itself, and the value of that as one identity of volume, where and how each identity of volume has a distinct identity of relationship to itself, and value of that as a distinct relationship to this value / value progression. This is what inventions work or not in relationship to it. They are further positive or not in relationship to it. So they have people involved with predicate acts. like wrongdoers on a max scale, involved with people trying to make legislative acts. So we'll examine how the women's movements nationally and interstates, like how they split that way, how they were involved with syntax racketeering. We're all victims. We're blaming right things, but they were also blaming other things, others themselves wrongly. And they were also defending that. And that was also one of the many things that was exploited, where and how propagated was an is an identity of human fact-shaping nature, value/value progression, as an identity of negative value nature progression, self-value, for time reasons. For example, where and how each identity of the ground location, they're just one person. But see, that individuals grouped and together is used to get over on any one person who's going to speak for integrity. In relationship to where and how, still, interbranch locations are still fabricating audio and video. All the private locations tied to them, including prisons, they're kept needing to hide lie progressions, since there were rules with predicate acts when they were kids, with databases, identity thefts, and frauds. These people are making pretend people have criminal records. They're framing innocent people by fabricating audio and video too. They have influences over juries per methods of this. They have all kinds of natures of courts involved with mental health experts that have been fabricating audio and video with them, and with prosecutors associated with them with locations. And that is exploited by worse. This is where they make good people evil and keep them that way, increasingly needing to blame other things other than themselves for negative value nature progressions, acts, and natures that they were our roles with. They were more responsible than those kids shooting each other. Intercities, sickly distinctly. Same ones tied to it. Involved with this. This is an identity theft fraud method. They had complete possession of the identity of everyone, including Susan B. Anthony, sickly distinctly, and Elizabeth B. Stanton. And so I have a book. I'll read you some parts of that. Part of that, and I'll get some YouTube videos on that for the next video, because I'm going to show you identity of the ground location. I'm going to show you also the Harriet Beecher Stowe house, the Mark Twain house, and down the street from it is a lawyer, Robert Cheverry's office. I don't know if it's still there. So he was a lawyer of a Robert Luskin in a 2006 case. Part of a case, /S, that was ongoing at the time of the plaintiff's death. Now, his lawyer, him and his co-defendants, like a Thaddeus Grabowski, was involved with the Domain family and with the Mendez family, with courts, judges, and prosecutors, and with my town's police chief, and 1 year ago involved with predicate acts on my street, and with with people on the child offender registry that are involved also with other natures of predicate acts with them on and off the Wethersfield offices, Wethersfield Library, and town offices. It used to be the police department there too. These are also people involved with predicate acts with uses of locations next to and on and off the Wethersfield Police Department, where they've been fabricating audio and video since I was a kid, where they've been using kids and making them have confessions, where they've been using investigators. And there's a law to hide their personal lie progressions and uses of that, and how from means for correlation nature to science to demonstrate that, which it is capable of doing. But this reveals on a mass scale other victim predators distinctly. And people of all styles already incapable of, knowing how to speak in relationship to where we are quality as fact cheaping nature. This is complete possession of that, as clear as day. The identity ground locations were designed for this, and how they are exploited through time. How it involves mayors and uses of the edges of parks. This is because they have roles with locations crimes, courts and foreign at the same time. Private people at the same time kept needing to hide secret roles with illusions from the past, where and how they've been involved with worse than just predicate acts in cases every single day, with those identity grounds used remotely. Too many ways, let alone the identity ground. Humanity as the identity of volume as value as nature / nature as value, not as a group. So that, in other words, bringing up equality, and they leave out exceptions in exception nature, because this was never revealed, because other was standing dishonestly in its face, needing to pretend its honesty, and needing to self-value. The method /S they have intercampuses of each age and nature sickly distinctly to keep our sickly non-distinctly effective from being discerned. Now one has learned till too late. Boxing is great. So this is worse than extortion too. Since the World Trade Center attack, people attached me to fake, trying to report things about that, fake conversations about that with themselves. The same ones are recorded and involved with people I did try to report, judges and prosecutors and military families involved with former director of the FBI. I didn't say his name. I just people asked me for help and I recorded proofs of this, confirmed after the World Trade Center attack. People on Park Street, leading up to the World Trade Center attack and since, have been involved with predicate acts intercities with campuses. People tied to them, for example, Park Street in Hartford, Connecticut. People on both sides of on and off the Connecticut State Capitol. This is where they go home. Like when you shut off the computer, only part of the CPU remembers things. All other capabilities, everything shuts down. Anything that wasn't saved to those locations, is wiped out. And this is a virus, like a computer virus, that was involved with the locations and grounds of the people who designed computers since before they were born. This method from some ancient times knew that countries were going to have to be identities increasingly self-valuing, how they found themselves manifest, bound, individually grouped and together, tactical ulterior, from the syntax value / value regression needed to defend nature's identity of the ground, relationship to engineering of fact-cheaping nature, into use by evolution science proper, and as that exception / exception nature that reveals all things. Boxing. The science is sharing identity. And so we have passions and emotions and aggressions used fake by our leaders distinct as victims, distinctly from the fake, positive, and negative treatments of overt criminal enterprises and private ones. And just regular, all that juxtaposed with that. And campuses further, database relationships further, private further, simultaneously to keep that per their method /S with uses of identity ground locations. This also has to do with on-off media locations and their roles with the park, with a whole bunch of ways. Millwoods Park is recorded, confessed, and demonstrated and involved with a whole bunch of juxtaposed natures of organized crime that Connecticut media is involved with the people who answer phones. For example, they make allegations and have roles fabricating audio and video with as some of the private involved with the interbranch, forging names and switching names, the executive branch and the judicial branch, in their roles with predicate acts in the case, and with the personally criminally involved, with former director of the FBI, in his defendant capacities, and people associated with the depositions of that. These same ones involved leading up to the World Trade Center attack, in that context, involved with investigations, investigators, and identities of the law that got locked into the illusions, like a sequence shift, which was proven after, post-dated documents, post-dated legal papers brought to the court on time had then been post-dated from inside the court to appear late to the judges, right before the World Trade Center attack. That proven led to the 2006 part of a case, /S, associated with Robert Luskin and his co-defendants. 3 of them involved with kids that went to my school. Ones I never had classes with, involved with the interbranch predicate acts, fabricating audio and video, putting me in fake quotations, putting me in fake locations. Now I caught them further with the principal child defender's campus before that was found out. And these are people in the past roles with women that are associated with, and women and men who are associated with CCSU. That were like the women that had a whole bunch of boyfriends at the same time, who had them affect confessions to me. So in other words, they had strangers in the past do this with judges and with the prosecutors, how they're on off the campuses too. They're not separate subjects. And this is also where and how they have name stacking. They made people have to use a whole bunch of names of people they don't even know. They were used by the people, federal criminals, but a whole bunch of different natures before they got caught. They were also involved with delusions with the people that I don't even know. But they made exceptions so they could pretend other. But they can't bring that up unless it's in some context where they're going to be pretending passions and emotions. So that's why they're forging names and switching names, roles with locations too, which is also confessed, recorded, demonstrated other ways. Like on-off Trinity College and on-off CCSU, there are people involved with predicate acts that are also recorded involved with the predicate acts on my street over the past 4 months, leading up to this semester and each year since, because they've been doing the same method /S with the kids, exploiting how the classrooms have people in one classroom. We have different teachers, but on the same identity ground location. And there's what is the subject that day or whatever like that for the teachers. And for their roles with how the mayors are criminally involved as victims. But how as victim predators, where everyone's hiding and preventing people free speech. When you go to the courts, they confess, record, and demonstrate. They want to pretend other than put them on paper. They can't do that because the people in the background associated with them are involved with them with what is actually recorded. With wire crimes, mail crimes, medicines crimes, drugs crimes with kids. Against their family members, attaching people to fake ties to themselves and to other doctors. These are people involved with insurance companies. So, in other words, also investigators, personally with their family members, everything like that. Identity ground locations near West Farms Mall, that park recorded, confessed, demonstrated, involved with people associated with the Kerr family, also with the and what's his name? Bubba Johnson. I'm sorry if the tone of my letter asking you for help with that was improper, because there are people associated with the traveler's insurance that are involved further with people intercampuses, intercities. Now these are also people involved with predicate acts and or with wrongdoing uses of the identities of people at Connecticut boxing gyms tied to the same house. That is intercities involved with the predicate acts on off the campuses that were timed and intercities connected, because those are people that are connected. Those are the people, those are also people involved with locations next to those campuses that were used to paint exception dangers. So they were wearing how they try to, they make up lies about people with the interbranch. Now these are also people involved with behavior crimes. In other words, there are judges and prosecutors that are recorded faking passions and emotions in relationship to their roles with sequence shifts and predicate acts with uses of, wrongdoing uses of, roles with it, of Facebook page policing, and of the ones with Wethersfield Police Department through time recorded fabricating audio and video, uses of the Wethersfield Police Department fabricate audio and video. A Leahy family is also recorded, confessed, and demonstrated, and people tied to them like Anthony Agman, involved with a whole bunch of doctors with medicines crimes, drugs crimes with kids, with houses next to schools tied to him. All sides of our high school, the middle school, other child campuses in town involved with predicate acts with the Agman family, and with the Joshua Julian, Joshua Stryker, and Dean Alfords, and a Dean Judge.